The moment you step away, something begins to happen that most people fail to understand. At first, your absence may seem small. She may believe that you are simply upset, busy, distracted, or waiting for the right moment to return. Her mind may tell her that nothing has truly changed because in the past your presence was always available. You answered, you explained, you reached out. You gave her another opportunity to feel secure in the knowledge that you would remain somewhere within reach. But when that pattern suddenly disappears, silence begins to take on a different meaning. Silence is powerful because it gives the mind nothing concrete to fight against. There are no arguments to win, no messages to analyze, no emotional reactions to control. There is only absence. And inside that absence, the imagination begins its work. The mind starts revisiting conversations, examining memories, and searching for the exact moment when everything changed. What once seemed ordinary can suddenly become significant. A simple message, a familiar habit, a moment of laughter, or even an argument can return with greater force because it now belongs to something she can no longer easily reach. This is where distance becomes more powerful than constant explanation. When you continually chase someone for answers, you give them the comfort of knowing that your attention remains under their control. But when you withdraw with discipline, you remove that certainty. She is no longer able to predict your next move, measure your feelings through your reactions, or assume that one word from her will immediately bring you back. The space you create forces reality to become visible. Yet the deepest purpose of staying away should never be to destroy another person. It should be to understand your own value. If you are constantly present for someone who repeatedly fails to respect your presence, your availability can become invisible. People often become careless with what they believe will never leave. Your absence interrupts that illusion. It creates a boundary that words alone often fail to establish. As time passes, she may begin to feel the weight of that silence in unexpected moments, not because you are attacking her, but because you are no longer protecting her from the consequences of losing access to you. And while she is left with her thoughts, you must resist the temptation to return merely to relieve the discomfort. Your silence has meaning only when it comes from self-respect, not manipulation. The strongest absence is not a performance designed to make someone panic. It is the quiet decision to stop abandoning yourself simply to remain close to someone else. At the beginning of your absence, she may carry a quiet confidence that you will eventually return. This confidence is often built on history. Perhaps you have left before, but came back. Perhaps you were always the one to send the first message, apologize first, explain yourself, or reopen a door after an argument. When someone becomes accustomed to your return, they stop seeing your departure as permanent. Your absence becomes another temporary storm they believe will pass. But time has a way of changing the meaning of silence. Every day you remain away can slowly transform certainty into questions. The first question may be simple. Why has he not returned? Then the questions begin to multiply. Is he truly done? Has something changed inside him? Did I misunderstand how much I meant to him? Is he happier without me? Has he finally realized that he deserves something different? These questions are powerful because they cannot always be answered from the outside. Without your constant presence, she is left to search within her own memories for explanations. The certainty she once felt can begin to weaken. This is one of the hidden effects of distance. People often feel secure not because they deeply understand another person, but because they believe they can predict them. The moment you stop behaving according to an old pattern, that prediction collapses. You are no longer playing the familiar role. You are no longer rushing back to restore comfort, and when the familiar disappears, the mind naturally tries to rebuild the missing picture. Time can also expose emotions that were previously hidden beneath routine. While you were always available, there may have been little reason for her to think deeply about losing you. Your messages, attention, and presence became part of the normal rhythm of life. But once that rhythm is broken, even ordinary moments can become reminders of what has changed. The places, songs, conversations, and habits connected to you may begin to carry a different emotional weight. Still, your purpose should not be to sit and wait for her mind to unravel. That is not strength. Real strength is continuing your own life while accepting that time will reveal what words cannot force. If she values you, distance may bring clarity. If she does not, distance will bring clarity to you as well. In either case, you gain something more valuable than temporary reassurance. The truth, the longer you remain committed to your boundaries, the harder it becomes for old assumptions to survive. She may discover that you were never as predictable as she believed. More importantly, you discover that you do not need to return simply because someone expects you to. That realization changes everything. The human mind has a strange relationship with what it can no longer reach. When something is constantly available, it becomes easy to overlook. Its presence blends into the background of daily life, and the mind assumes it will remain there tomorrow. But when access disappears, attention changes. Suddenly, the person who once seemed ordinary can occupy an extraordinary amount of mental space. Your absence creates an empty space, and the mind often tries to fill that space with memories, questions, and imagined possibilities. She may begin remembering moments she once dismissed without thought. A conversation that seemed unimportant may return to her mind late at night. The way you looked at her, the words you used, the times you understood something about her that others failed to notice. These memories can gain strength because they are no longer being replaced by new experiences with you. When you are present, reality is constantly moving. There are new conversations, disagreements, routines, and distractions. But when you disappear, the past becomes frozen. The mind can return to it again and again, examining every detail. This is where imagination becomes more powerful than reality. She may begin wondering what you are doing, how you have changed, and whether someone else now receives the attention she once considered secure. She may compare the present emptiness with the comfort of your former presence. The mind does not always remember people exactly as they were. Distance can cause it to magnify certain qualities while minimizing the frustrations. What was once familiar can slowly become precious because it is now difficult to reach. But there is a deeper lesson in this process. You should not stay away merely to make someone obsessed with you. That kind of strategy turns your life into a performance controlled by another person's reaction. True distance has a different purpose. It allows both people to see the relationship without the constant noise of emotional dependence. When you stop chasing, explaining, and demanding reassurance, you create space for reality to speak. If she begins to miss you, that feeling must come from her own recognition, not from pressure you placed upon her. And if she does not, you receive an answer that may be painful but necessary. Either outcome is better than remaining trapped in a cycle where you continually sacrifice your peace just to maintain someone else's attention. The most powerful thing about becoming unavailable is not that it forces another person to think about you. It is that you finally gain the freedom to think about yourself. You begin to see how much energy you spent trying to remain important in someone else's world. With time, you can redirect that energy toward your own purpose, discipline, and growth. And as you become less dependent on being remembered, you may discover a strength that no amount of attention could ever give you. There is a dangerous comfort in believing that certain people will always remain. When someone is consistently present, patient, and willing to return, their value can become hidden beneath familiarity. She may not consciously decide to take you for granted. Often it happens slowly. Your messages become expected. Your attention becomes normal. Your forgiveness becomes predictable. The effort you once gave so freely begins to feel less like a gift and more like a permanent part of her life. This is how people sometimes fail to recognize the value of someone until that person is no longer standing in the same place. Your absence changes the equation. What was once automatic is suddenly missing. There is no familiar message waiting at the usual time, no immediate response, no emotional reassurance, no person constantly trying to repair every distance between you. At first, the mind may resist accepting the change. She may assume you are simply testing her, waiting for attention, or preparing to return as you always did before. But as time continues, reality begins to become more difficult to ignore. That is when the things she once overlooked can return with greater meaning. She may remember the times you supported her when no one else understood. She may recognize the patience you showed during difficult moments. She may begin to compare the security of your presence with the uncertainty created by your absence. The value of a person is sometimes revealed not through grand speeches, but through the silence left behind when they stop giving what everyone assumed they would always provide. However, this realization cannot be forced. You cannot demand that someone appreciate you. You cannot argue another person into understanding your worth. The more desperately you try to convince someone of your importance, the more you risk placing your self-respect in their hands. Real recognition must come naturally through experience and reflection. Distance can provide that reflection because it removes the constant comfort of your availability. While she is confronting what has changed, you must also confront your own patterns. Ask yourself why you remained so long in a situation where your efforts felt invisible. Why did you continue giving when the exchange became unequal? Why did you confuse loyalty with self-abandonment? These questions matter because leaving is not truly powerful if you spend every moment waiting for permission to return. The greatest transformation occurs when your absence is no longer a tactic, but a decision rooted in dignity. You stop measuring your worth by whether she notices your silence. You stop checking whether she regrets losing you. You understand that if someone finally recognizes your value, that realization belongs to them. And if they do not, you are still free to move forward. Time reveals what constant proximity often hides. It can show her what your presence truly meant, but it can also show you that the person you were waiting to be valued by was never the source of your value in the first place. Time is one of the most unforgiving forces in human relationships because it does not argue, chase, persuade, or demand explanations. It simply continues moving, and while it moves, it creates distance between what was and what is. At first, a person may feel protected by pride. She may tell herself that losing you does not matter, that you were replaceable, that you will eventually return, or that life will continue exactly as it did before. Pride can create a temporary shield against regret. It allows people to avoid looking directly at the consequences of how they treated someone. But time slowly weakens that shield because reality continues without waiting for anyone to become emotionally prepared. Each day of your absence can become another piece of evidence that something has truly changed. The person she once expected to hear from remains silent. The attention she assumed would always be available is no longer there. The emotional connection that once seemed familiar has been interrupted, and eventually, the mind may be forced to confront a difficult question. What if this loss is real? What if the person I believed would always return has finally chosen himself? This is where emotional neglect can become impossible to ignore. Sometimes people do not intentionally set out to hurt those who care for them. They simply become comfortable receiving without noticing how much the other person is giving. They expect understanding but offer little in return. They accept loyalty while failing to protect it. They become accustomed to forgiveness and begin treating patience as weakness. Over time, the person who keeps giving may slowly disappear inside the relationship, sacrificing peace in order to preserve a connection that is no longer balanced. Then comes the moment when that person stops. The silence that follows can reveal what arguments never could. Suddenly, there is no one trying to fix every misunderstanding, no one rushing to restore emotional comfort, no one available to absorb every disappointment and still remain standing at the same door. Your absence does not have to be cruel for it to be meaningful. It simply allows the natural consequences of your departure to exist without you constantly rescuing the situation. She may begin to remember moments differently. A disagreement she once believed she had won may now feel unimportant compared with the connection that was lost. The attention she dismissed may become something she realizes was rare. The patience she overlooked may be recognized as a form of care. This does not mean she will suddenly become a different person, nor does it mean regret automatically leads to change. Realizing that you lost something valuable and becoming capable of protecting that value are two very different things. That distinction is crucial. You must not allow the possibility of her regret to become the center of your life. If you stay away only to count the days until she breaks, you are still emotionally trapped. Your distance may be physical, but your mind remains under her control. You still wake up wondering whether she misses you. You still measure your worth by her reaction. You still need her pain to prove that your presence mattered. That is not freedom. It is dependence wearing the mask of power. The real purpose of distance is to let truth emerge. If your absence makes her reflect, that reflection belongs to her. If she begins to understand the consequences of taking you for granted, she must carry that understanding herself. You cannot force remorse, and you should not build your future around waiting for it. Your responsibility is to examine your own behavior with equal honesty. Did you communicate your boundaries? Did you ignore warning signs? Did you remain because you loved her, or because you feared the emptiness that would follow leaving? Time can reveal painful answers on both sides. Perhaps she eventually understands your value. Perhaps she reaches out with genuine accountability and a willingness to build something different. Or perhaps she remains unchanged, and your absence simply confirms that leaving was necessary. In either case, you win clarity. You no longer have to live inside endless uncertainty, trying to convince someone to treat you with the respect you should never have had to beg for. The longer time passes, the more important it becomes to resist returning to the same cycle without evidence of real change. Familiarity is seductive. A single message can awaken old emotions. Nostalgia can make you remember the best moments while conveniently hiding the reasons you walked away. But maturity requires memory. Remember not only how much you missed her, but also how often you felt unseen while standing beside her. Let time reveal the consequences, but do not use time as a weapon. Let your absence be an act of self-respect. The strongest message is not, "I hope you suffer without me." The strongest message is, "I finally learned that I can live without abandoning myself." The greatest power you can ever possess in a relationship is not the power to make someone suffer, regret, panic, or fall apart because you walked away. Those forms of power are temporary because they depend entirely on another person's reaction. If she cries, you feel powerful. If she misses you, you feel important. If she returns, you believe you have won. But the moment your sense of victory depends on her emotions, she still controls a part of you. Real power begins when you no longer need another person to break in order to prove that you mattered. The strongest transformation is not watching her fall apart. It is watching yourself become whole. When you finally stay away, there will be moments when your own mind becomes the greatest challenge. You may want to know if she misses you. You may wonder whether she regrets the way she treated you. You may feel tempted to check her social media, ask mutual friends about her, or create reasons to appear in her life again. Your emotions may tell you that one message will give you closure, but closure rarely comes from receiving the perfect words from another person. Often, closure begins when you stop demanding that another human being provide an explanation powerful enough to heal what you must eventually heal within yourself. This is why distance requires discipline. Anyone can walk away in a moment of anger. Anyone can disappear for a few days to create a reaction. But remaining true to a boundary when loneliness arrives is far more difficult. There is a difference between using silence as punishment and choosing silence because you refuse to repeat a pattern that destroys your peace. Punishment keeps you emotionally connected to the person you are trying to hurt. A boundary releases you from the need to hurt them at all. Perhaps she eventually feels the full weight of your absence. Perhaps time removes the distractions and forces her to confront memories she once ignored. Perhaps she realizes that the person she took for granted was not as easy to replace as she imagined. Perhaps she begins to understand that your patience was not weakness, your attention was not meaningless, and your loyalty was not guaranteed forever. These realizations can happen, but they must never become the reason you stop living. You cannot pause your life while waiting for someone else to understand your value. Every day spent waiting for her regret is another day you surrender to the past. The goal is not to become a ghost haunting her thoughts. The goal is to become so focused on your own growth that whether she thinks about you or not no longer determines the direction of your day. You begin building a life that does not collapse because one person leaves, changes, or fails to recognize what you offered. This is where self-respect becomes more important than revenge. Revenge asks, how can I make her feel what I felt? Self-respect asks, why am I still willing to hurt myself to remain connected to someone who hurt me? The first question keeps you trapped in a battle. The second question opens the door to freedom. When you understand this difference, you stop needing dramatic endings. You stop searching for the perfect final message. You stop performing strength for someone who may not even be watching. Your life becomes quieter, but your mind becomes stronger. Time will do what time always does. It will reveal what was real, expose what was temporary, and show both people the consequences of their choices. You do not need to force the process. If she truly valued you, distance may help her recognize what familiarity once concealed. If she did not, then distance will reveal something equally valuable, that you were fighting for a connection that could not survive without your constant effort. And if she returns, that moment should not automatically erase everything that happened. Missing you is not the same as understanding you. Regretting your absence is not the same as changing behavior. Before allowing anyone back into your life, look beyond emotion and examine patterns. Has accountability appeared? Has respect become consistent? Are promises supported by actions? Real change does not arrive only in dramatic words spoken during moments of loneliness. It reveals itself through patience, consistency, and responsibility over time. But even if she never returns, your story is not a tragedy. Sometimes the person you believe you cannot live without becomes the experience that teaches you how to stand alone. You discover that the silence you once feared can become peaceful. The empty space can become room for new purpose. The energy you spent chasing answers can be redirected toward your work, your discipline, your goals, and the people who meet your presence with genuine respect. So let time do its work, but do not stand still waiting for the results. Stay away when staying away protects your peace. Move forward when moving forward restores your dignity. Let her face whatever truths your absence reveals, but remember that her journey is not yours to control. The final victory is not that she falls apart without you. The final victory is that you no longer fall apart because of her.